read the title and thumbnail correctly, Nadu and Grief are officially banned out of the modern formats. And honestly, Constructed Magic might just be back with restrictions even in the vintage format, bans out of Pioneer and Legacy. It feels like anything that you can touch in a constructed sense, heck, even the digital formats, are completely new. And with Modern's RCQ season well underway here, it's going to be a really exciting time to test out new strategies, see what finds itself at the top. Now, in today's video, I specifically want to kind of gloss over a lot of the B&R announcement, but specifically focus on the modern aspect of things. And in future videos down the line this week, I want to talk about how there's a lack of presence of bans on the One Ring, and specifically a frog might be rearing its ugly head as a powerful threat in not only Legacy, but in Modern as well. Now, that's all kind of down the line here. Let me know what you think of the banned and restricted announcement down below, and see if your thoughts or anything that you're thinking about changes. Maybe there's something you missed. So let's hop right into the article and see what the mothership has to say about Constructed Magic. August 26, 2024, banned and restricted announcement by Dan and Dave. No changes to standard. Pioneer has Amalia and Sorin Imperious Bloodlord banned out of the format. Modern has Nadu, Winged Wisdom, and Grief banned. Legacy, unsurprisingly, Grief banned. Vintage has Urza Saga restricted and Vexing Bauble restricted. Vexing Bauble is absolutely wild. And I guess it kind of makes sense here because in a format with the power 9, whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, kind of surprising. It seems like, especially with that being searchable by Urza Saga, you can kind of tell. So it looks like the artifact menace has been kind of managed there. Alchemy, no changes. Explorer has Amalia and Sorin banned as well. I mean, with Explorer probably eventually becoming Pioneer, I don't imagine they'll differentiate it. It kind of makes sense. This is kind of retroing that in. No changes in Historic, Timeless, or Brawl. Timeless continues to be this kind of like Wild West of Magic cards where you can play with like stuff like Dark Ritual and Omniscience, but it doesn't necessarily have like all the payoffs in the world. So really interesting place with fetches and everything. Might need to explore that some more, but we'll see. So an updated banned and restricted announcement cadence. This is, I think, like the first big important thing here, because they want to try and make B&R announcements to better suit the constructed environment and work around big tournaments. They specifically held this one off, and we've seen, and I made videos on the kind of downfall or the decrease in attendance of certain RCQ tournaments and how when you did go to them, it was really just Nadu everywhere. And so it just didn't do well for attendance rates and people looking at Constructed Magic. So I'm interested to see where they're changing the timing here. Today, we're going to be starting off by addressing an issue we've had with the timing of our banned and restricted announcements. The current timing tied B&R announcements to set releases, placing the announcement on the Monday prior to the start of Duskmourn and House of Horror previews. The goal is doing so was to make sure each set had a proper context for evaluating new cards and to provide fewer points where decks would change. However, this timing would not take into account the timing of our competitive play seasons, namely the regional championships and the regional championship qualifiers, and ultimately the Pro Tour. This led to the B&R announcement that occurred in the middle of competitive seasons, or as we saw it with the most recent announcement in June 24th, they can occur the week of the Pro Tour. Yikes. This can make it difficult for players to have confidence in their deck selection for events they plan for, both from a testing perspective and a logistical one. It's clear that the timing of the June 24th banned and restricted announcement was poor, so much that we notified the public ahead of time that we would not be making any changes to Modern so that players could appropriately plan for Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3. This was certainly not ideal. Moving forward, we'll be aligning our B&R announcements to the RC and RCQ seasons. This will allow us to make adjustments to our player environments to ensure the best experience possible for a competitive play pipeline. Our plan is to use the RC and RCQ season, which includes the Pro Tours, to gather data to observe the evolution of how each format absorbs each new release. This also means fewer B&R announcements overall. Okay, so I think this is good. I think like a lot of players' knee-jerk reaction is that we want more B&R announcements, but it's not good because it sets a precedent, right? Like I think a lot of people forget that when it comes to a lot of cards, and we see that with cards like Ragavan and Ren and 6 and everything, and to be fair, those cards might have been power creeped out of the format, maybe not necessarily solved, but there is room for evolution in a format. There is room for old cards to come back and be playable again. And that's how we should be able to adapt to certain things. There are, of course, certain cards like Nadu, Grief, and stuff like that that are really hard to adapt to, but I think a lot of people got okay with their play patterns in terms of Grief. Nadu being a bit more egregious, especially in terms of like playtime in tournaments. So I think less B&Rs are good. It just kind of needs to be accompanied with better card design. And we're not going to see another Modern Horizons for a very long time. It's going to be a couple of years. So let's see what ultimately happens. To that end, the next B&R announcement will be December 16th, which is a really long time away. End of the year, before Christmas and everything. It's also worth noting that we don't plan on changing the current standard B&R philosophy, meaning we still only want one window per year, barring an emergency, where we consider taking action on standard. And I think that's good. It allows them to then make decisions long term for cards that they're going to have confidence in, where they may see a card be a problem, but then they ultimately may have planned for it in a set kind of coming up and everything. So I kind of like that for standard. A lot of people talking about now, especially, that standard is in a good place, especially with a lot of constructed Magic just being where it was for this long. The standard actually might be good, but we're going to kind of skip over that. Pioneer, not really a format that I play on, but happy to see the Pioneer players kind of eat in that sense. And Legacy we'll touch on a little bit, but Modern is the kind of focus today. Nadu banned, Grief is banned. As mentioned in the opening section of this article, the timing of the previous B&R announcement was poor. We believe it was important that players know when to expect changes to the format. As such, we thought it was important to stay committed to the announcement dates we promised. The date leading up to the week of the Modern Pro Tour in Amsterdam was simply too early and would have served us a lot better being a few weeks after that event instead. This caused the last month and a half of Modern to be fairly stagnant. Players knew they were likely to ban Nadu in the next opportunity, but they knew that the best chance to win an event was likely to play Nadu. It's poor experience for players, stores, and tournament organizers. And so I kind of touched this in a video earlier this week where Cedric Phillips actually tweeted out, like, there's a correct thing that you can do at RCQs right now, and there's an incorrect thing. And the correct thing is you need to just play Nadu. You don't need to play decks that answer Nadu, because then you have to answer everything else. Like, Nadu answers everything. Just play Nadu. With changes to the cadence of B&R announcements, we would have likely targeted the end of July before folks started engaging in the current Modern RCQ season. While we can't go back in time and remedy that, we can learn from the past and change our approach in the future. And we can certainly take this time to address the clear issues with the format. Okay. Michael Majors, the lead designer for Modern Horizons 3 and a resident Modern expert format, has written a few words about the origin about how Modern came to be and why we're banning it today. There's a whole, I love this. There's a whole thing on Nadu. Okay, we'll hop onto this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this article. For those of you that want to stick around, I'm going to go to that at the end of the video. For those of you that kind of bit more, it's going to be kind of linked down below. Check that out. We'll timeline it, but let's hop through the rest of the article here. I love that. This is great. I love that. For some time now, Grief has been maligned or malaligned as one of the least fun parts of competitive Modern events. And I've been saying this forever. There have been people in my comment sections that have been arguing that Grief is perfectly fine. Y'all are screwy. Y'all have just completely lost the plot. Starting the game down 2 or 3 cards from the various 1-mana ways it can be returned is quite brutal. Having to mulligan is already painful, but being double Grief directly after just exacerbates an already unfun experience. Again, I've been saying this on this channel. Even outside of mulligans, having a turn 1 answer to a 3 or 4 power menace creature after an opponent has taken away your best cards is just asking, wait, I mean, like, are you supposed to have like 3 removal spells in your opening hand? While Grief is currently seeing as much play, not currently seeing as much play as it has in the past, it's still a format staple used by several decks. Mono Black Necro Dominance, Esper Goryo's Vengeance, Living End, Rakdos Midrange? What do you mean Rakdos Midrange? Folks, someone let me know. When's the last time you've seen Rakdos Midrange? I know I'm focused on something small here, but what is Rakdos midrange in Modern? I know Mono Black Necro Dominance. I know Goryo's. I know Living End. What is Rakdos midrange right now in Modern? Interesting. And a handful of other decks are still using 1-mana cards to abuse Grief's manaless evoke interaction. In the interest of making the format more fun, we are banning Grief today. We certainly considered a few other cards to take action, namely the One Ring. Okay, I wanted to dedicate a whole video to this because the fact that the One Ring is still around, we have like red-white energy that just want to challenge with the One Ring, like Boros aggro with the One Ring. And the fact that the other energy deck in the format, the energy Jeskai Control, is a One Ring deck as well is kind of insane. As a mill player, I kind of just want to tell people that you probably just need to buy your place out of the One Ring. Like the One Ring, I hope you understand right now, as of this video, you should go buy the One Ring. It is about to skyrocket in price. The One Ring to the moon. I got 1 copy for EDH and I'm kind of mad that I didn't get another 3. Like, One Ring truly to the moon. It's about to go crazy. While present in several decks, there's no clear the One Ring deck terrorizing Modern. That's kind of because it's in like every deck. Being a unique combination of self-protection and card advantage, it is a strong card that helps prop up several varied strategies. Ultimately, we decided not to act against the One Ring. The possible problems it may be causing for Modern just aren't as clear as Nadu and Grief. Like, I kind of see what they're saying, but the vocal minority, the Twitter fingers, and the community, they may not agree. Once we see how the format evolves after this change, we'll continue to observe and evaluate the health of the Modern format and see where further actions are necessary. Honestly, it might be that the One Ring gets banned this December, because if they're already looking at it and they're saying they don't see a clear deck, and the fact that like one of the top 3 decks is abusing it right now, we just had, again, as I mentioned, a version of Red White Energy that won the Modern Challenge with it. So a lot more people are going to be trying it out. The One Ring and Orcish Bowmasters probably to like try and stop it. It's going to be the next big thing. I'm saying get your copies of One Ring right. Like, I'm going to be playing a lot of Mill with the One Ring. Just saying. On a more positive note, despite Nadu overshadowing much of the potential what players can explore with an addition of Modern Horizons 3, we've seen a few non-Nadu cards and strategies find success. Energy and Eldrazi decks were themes that we took potential shots at propping up. Necrodominance is the namesake card of a brand new mono black strategy. Psychic Frog has transformed previous Is It Murktide decks into Dimir versions. What else could be discovered as the looming shadow of Nadu is removed? Now, these are some interesting points here. Necrodominance, I would say specifically, is an archetype that is largely propped up by Grief. I'm going to be completely honest. It is largely propped up by Grief because you have the initial aggro and Necrodominance finds your win condition after. Will Mono Black Necro really survive after this? Probably not. I'm curious if Living End even has like staying power in this sense, because Living End was just kind of taking advantage of the combo meta, especially with Grief gone. That's like a big tool that they don't have anymore to like just make sure your opponent doesn't quote unquote have it. And Psychic Frog, again, just deserves its own video, especially with what it's been doing in Legacy. I will say it's been doing that in conjunction with Grief. But just the fact that you can pitch it to something like Force of Will, have it be a threat, draw you cards, like it does a lot. Psychic Frog does a lot specifically in Legacy. And I think in Modern, it's going to continue to kind of be, as they mentioned, like it's kind of morphed the Murktide list right now, where it's not Is It anymore, it's Dimir. It's going to be interesting, especially its interaction with Murktide, I think props it up a lot. So it kind of feels like if Psychic Frog is going to be good in this metagame right now, and especially in conjunction with Murktide, you know, it's going to be like Fatal Push and Path that really kind of define us right now. Fatal Push for the Psychic Frog, Path to Exile for Murktide, because you just need some type of like hard interaction for something like that. So really interesting in that case. Now, Grief banned in Legacy, I don't want to go over this too much, just because we know that in videos, if you go into the Legacy metagame right now, Grief is kind of taking up like 30% of the Legacy metagame. Like 1 in 3 decks in your average queue in your tournaments are like some type of Reanimator Grief. So it's just Grief Scaminator, where something like Gristlebrand is no longer even the reanimation target. It's literally just Grief, because taking your opponent's cards away and forcing them to interact with nothing is way more powerful than reanimating something like Gristlebrand and drawing into more cards. It's better to take your opponent off cards than it is to have more cards yourself, which is like kind of wild. And so this is just like kind of promoting a really bad play pattern. But Psychic Frog specifically, yeah, I mean, they kind of bring it up here. Like, we looked at a new Eldrazi deck featuring Modenr and talked a lot about Psychic Frog. Like, it's going to be kind of interesting. Now, Vintage, like, this is its whole other thing. I don't have like the proper context or experience to talk about Vintage, but especially, you know, they're talking about Luros. I mean, they're talking about Black Lotus here. I mean, I can kind of see why Urza Saga and Vexing Bauble are gone. Like, Urza Saga created this kind of consistency piece where, yeah, you can get Black Lotus off of Urza Saga, but you can also get like Vexing Bauble again. Like, just countering free spells. You can pitch it away to draw a card. Like this card, I'm honestly like, the fact that I personally didn't even see this in Vintage, like this just feels obvious, right? As a non-Vintage player, this just feels obvious that it does busted things in that format. But that's kind of cool. Kind of cool to see that change. Now, there's a whole lot of discussions around alchemy and kind of the arena only formats. I'm not going to touch on that. I'm going to, let me close out my thoughts here, and then I'm going to kind of spend that article on Nadu, because it's important, I think, from a context perspective to understand why Nadu was banned, and hopefully it can inform some of the decisions moving forward. So I think overall, the changes are good. I personally, I wanted Grief gone for so long. I'm really excited to be playing Modern right now. The One Ring, again, might just be looming, like rearing its ugly head. I might just have to purchase One Rings for MTGO, because Lord knows Mana Traders is about to go crazy with the lack of copies. And if I try and buy 3 more copies of the One Ring, my wife might kill me. Like, the price of those cards, like, I'm about to check it right now. Face-to-face games. If I hop into face-to-face games right now, my kind of big distributor here, the One Ring. Oh, Lord. Wait. A playset of the One Ring costs it's going to cost you $800 for a playset of the One Ring. Oh my God. I can't play Paper Modern. I really hope. Wow. Wow. Nah, that's crazy. This just, nah, that's crazy. This actually deserves like let me just screen snip this right now. Nah, that's crazy. Nah. Like, let's just on the desktop right there. Y'all see the little intervention meme? I was trying to work that around for a thumbnail. Nah, that's crazy. The one. I'm actually shocked. I'm so happy I have my 1 copy, at least for EDH, but like, when did this happen? This is probably the promo. Yeah, because you get this out of the box. Nah, that's actually wild. Okay, well, let's talk about Nadu, because that deserves its own video by itself. On banning Nadu Winged Wisdom in Modern. As the lead designer of Modern Horizons 3, I want to weigh in on the decision today. Okay, the lead designer. Okay, Michael. Nadu Winged Wisdom was a design mistake. Okay, we got there. The community quickly identified in previous season the combination of Shuko, our art writer on core, with Nadu would allow players to draw out their entire library. As one would expect, many early lists were untuned, being either too fragile or using Nadu often as an afterthought than a primary game plan before Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3. Nadu was clearly a strong deck, but hadn't quite shown itself as bannable. As we know, the Pro Tour changed that. The best players in the world had the incentive to tune the deck for the highest possible upside, and they delivered. They removed Thassa's Oracle from the deck and figured out how to handle any situation through a convoluted Endurance and Springheart and Nantuko loop that could effectively give Nadu players infinite mana, which means they can fight through any situation, including interaction and battlefield sweepers. This loop also required demonstrating a complicated series of game actions with a high number of permanents changing zones that resulted in extremely long turns. Now, I wasn't quite sure about this loop. I didn't pay much to it. Like as a mill player, it was kind of just like surgical to Nadu or just lose, right? The deck was beautifully built and a logistical nightmare. I love that. There's a quote of the day right here. The deck dominated the tournament with a 59% win rate, and Simon Nielsen claimed the Pro Tour trophy. Since then, it has performed worse. Some of this can be attributed to the fact that the deck is objectively weaker online, especially with the amount of clicking. Many players will still resort to the Thassa's Oracle, especially because, again, with the amount of clicking, a weak card outside the combo once they've drawn their entire deck due to the Endurance loop being unrealistic under an online timer. This makes the deck more vulnerable to mulligans and weaker to interaction. Despite that, it continues to be a prevalent part of the winner's metagame on Magic Online and threatening to put up an incredible number on the RCQs. Removing another combination card is like Shuko or Outrider on core wouldn't solve the logistical problem that Nadu presents. This is like when they banned like Bridge from Below instead of banning Hogak way back when. Even at weaker win rates, Nadu leveraging Lightning Greaves or similar cards could still be problematic for a long-term enjoyment. Notably, Lightning Greaves isn't searchable by Urza Saga, so that was like another thing. Like if they did ban Shuko or Outrider, like the deck would weaken. Again, especially just because the other options weren't really tutorable by Urza Saga, which was like a big part of like the turn 3 win. But yeah, so since it threatens to monopolize people's time, all while not being a fun or easy deck to interact with, there isn't a compelling argument to preserve the deck. For these reasons, Nadu is banned. So how did we get here? Nadu went through almost all Modern Horizons 3 development looking something like this. So you may cast permanent spells as though they had, wait, what? Hey, yo, this is about to be some, yo, this was the original? You may cast permanent spells as though they had flash. Whenever a permanent you control becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, put it in your hand. Oh. Nadu was a powerful option against interaction and part of a various banned mid-range strategies throughout our testing, but it wasn't something that our group perceived as much more than a role player. This is a cracked commander, by the way. If this was the original text of Nadu, can you imagine just Bant just becoming even more the best color in EDH, the best color pair in EDH? Like, yo, the best two color combination, I would say by a mile. Yo, you just get a free, what's that? A Vidalcan Orrery. You just get a free Vidalcan Orrery on here. And if it gets targeted, you just, oh Lord. And this doesn't happen once per turn, by the way. This was not a once per turn restriction, but it was specifically just on Nadu. So the thing is like this could still go like kind of infinite because you would just need two creatures. You would Shuko, attach Shuko, unattach Shuko to another creature, attach Shuko. You just keep going back and forth, back and forth. To be fair, though, it's whenever a permanent. Oh, actually, wait, it's whenever a permanent you control. Oh, it's on everything. No, this is a busted Magic card. No, this is a broken Magic card. No, don't print this. For more context, Modern Horizon testing worked for both MH2 and 3. We brought in a small group of contractors and worked on the set on a dedicated sprint as a collaboration. Yo, they got that project management terminology here. Between the group and small number of play designers. Yo, shout out to everyone here. Anyone here like a project manager here? I'm trying to get my PMP later this year, but the play testing time is more dense as the group is singularly focused on the set without other responsibilities, but shorter in terms of weeks. After playtesting, there were several series of last-minute checks of the sets of various groups. This is a normal operating procedure for every release. It is a series of opportunities for folks from various departments and disciplines to weigh on every component of the project and give final feedback. In one of these meetings, there was a great deal of concern raised by Nadu's flash granting ability for commit. Hey, yo! This literally says whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls. Oh, an opponent controls. Oh, I'm reading this. Okay. Oh, so this wasn't a busted constructed card. This was a perfectly fine constructed card then. Okay, so they were scared of Vidalcan Orrery on a creature in a command. They were scared of Vidalcan Orrery in the command zone. Okay, it wasn't clear that the card would have an audience or home, but something that was important for every card we make. Ultimately, my intention was to create a build around aimed at commander play. Okay. Yo! How many times do we have to make this mistake? We are designing commander cards for constructed play. We are making legitimate decisions about constructed Magic for commander play. And this is what happens. Commander players said, yo, this is too strong. And the lead designer's like, yo, my bad. Let me make it worse in commander by making it insane and constructed. Nah, what? No, yo, this is like the wildest part of the video. Nah, I'm tweeting that later. That's crazy. I missed the interaction with 0 mana abilities that are so problematic. The last round of folks who were shown the cards in the building missed it too. We didn't play test with Nadu's final iteration as we were too far along in the process and it shipped as is. That is a logistical problem. You're telling me the commander players ruined our constructed formats? Commander players said Vidalcan Orrery on a commander is too strong. So we changed the card to make it more broken for modern and constructed play to make the commander players happy. Are you kidding me? Nah, that's crazy. I'm going to go over some talking points of learning. Before I do, I emphasize that despite the flaws in process, ultimately the card was my responsibility to lead design. I don't even know if this was ultimately your fault, because now you're saying that based on the process is terrible. Because the amount of people looking at it from a commander perspective is flawed. How many people are looking at this from a constructed perspective? This is Modern Horizons 3. This is a constructed format first before it's commander. I guess Corpo wants it to be commander first. The process is flawed. Because my intention was to create a build around aimed at commander play. Michael, I'm trying to help you. Scope of risk. A lot of early buzz around Nadu was like, why does it have 4 toughness? Or if it only triggered once, would it be okay? Okay. And the most extreme being, did they put the quotations on the card in the wrong place? As I've already gone over, the most obvious answer to things is typically the right one. Nadu was not an attempt to push a card up to the perceived maximum power and missing the mark. If I had grasped the scope of the risk here, I would have changed the text box entirely and not hoped that trimming a toughness would land us. Yeah, like the one big thing was like, honestly, I feel like we would be in a different world if it was 3 toughness. Heck, if it was even 2 toughness. If it was shockable, if it was boltable, I feel like we'd be in a completely different world. Like at a baseline, it would be, you could hit it with, what's that burn spell that you can deal damage to a creature or planeswalker and you deal 2 damage at base, but if you have delirium, you deal 6. Like if it was, if you could deal with this card with that at its base level without delirium and then bolt as well, I feel like we'd be in a different one. Nadu as a 3/2 would probably actually put this at a very different world because it'd be so easy to answer from a damage perspective. Being 4 is insane. As a concrete example of something we changed, Amp Raptor had a much more cascade-like ability early in development. The result it results in a lot of Glimpse of Tomorrows being cast. The deck wasn't too strong, but the combos took forever, and the deck wasn't very enjoyable. We even failed to patch it over a few times by changing Amp Raptor in various ways, but ultimately we had to redesign the card to what it is now to avoid any shenanigans as possible. The benefits of creating this new Glimpse deck didn't make up for how unenjoyable the play pattern was. Many more cards in Modern Horizons 3 are open-ended build-arounds that are trying not to be immediately obvious with how to use them. We put them through their paces as a group, and in most cases didn't conclude how to optimize them. To me, Magic is the most fun when it presents a puzzle for people to experiment with and debate. So right, you missed it, and clearly there's a desire to take risks. So what does that mean moving forward? Stop testing constructed formats with Commander players. Commander players are ruining constructed Magic. I say that as a Commander player, by the way. What we learned. This is both the design and logistical failure. This is something we try to tackle in a variety of ways. The banned and restricted announcement timing is changing to be optimized for RCQs and widespread competitive play moving forward. While we cannot guarantee we'll avoid bans in the future, we can take steps to make sure that they will do as little as possible, a little damage as possible for players who want to invest their time and energy into competitive formats. On the inside, it's a combination of things. One, at a high level, we want to make sure that all relevant groups have time to impact change in a time window that makes sense for the project. I have faith that if the current Nadu had been scrutinized while our contractors were actively playtesting, things would have turned out better. 2, I'll be putting more effort forward being conservative if I can't draw clear conclusions, as well as encouraging that in behaviors in others. I don't know that Shuko was powerful. I didn't know that Shuko was powerful with Nadu. However, I was aware that I didn't fully understand the implications of Nadu's text box. That should have urged me to be more aggressively seek other opinions and failing to strong conclusion default to others. I was blinded by a goal, make something that was clearly awesome for everybody. Ultimately, what do you mean for everybody? Stop making cards for Commander in constructed formats. Stop designing for Commander in constructed cards. Nadu should have just been in one of the Commander decks in this case. It should not have been Modern legal. Y'all already made Modern sets. Y'all already made Commander cards, Commander product that are not legal in Modern or the constructed formats, unless you're Legacy and Vintage. Why not just keep doing that? If you made a card with Commander in mind and you're changing it with Commander in mind, right? Like with Commander, I should say not even in mind, with it being the forefront decision for you to change it. Why keep it in the constructed set? This was like Hogak. Like, wasn't there some rumor going around? I'm not sure if it's verifiable right now. Otherwise, I would see content creators kind of point to it all the time. But wasn't there some discussion about how Hogak was supposed to be like Commander only? Like they completely missed it because it's supposed to be designed for Commander. Yo, they're like Nadu's just Hogak 2.0. I'll conclude by stressing the point that Magic is a game of enormous complexity. We won't get things right all the time or always be able to predict our how our formats respond. And I will give them the benefit of the doubt here. It's a lot to test, but also on the other hand, there should be like the contractors you bring in should also have some of this in mind. Like if you had someone like the Aspiring Spike on there or some other pro players, like I feel like if the collective mind, if you gave them like a couple of weeks or something, they'd really be able to just like bring this through the ringer and test it, right? Like, however, the creation of this game is a labor of love. And so in these situations that fall on the side of clear mistakes with clear solutions, we take them very seriously and we always look forward to improve the game we make them. Fair enough. I appreciate Michael kind of bringing this forward. As much as the amount of criticism that I brought forward, I appreciate the transparency here. And Michael, I think for a large part, did a largely good job with the design of Modern Horizons 3. I think there's a few things like Nadu specifically that like missed the mark, but I think a lot of parts of Modern Horizons 3 did hit the mark. It felt like it was a lot less powerful than Modern Horizons 3, which might actually just been a net positive thing. In a lot of ways, like energy really hit the mark. There's some Eldrazi pieces that really hit the mark as well. There's a lot of things that came out of Modern Horizons that I think are a net positive for the format. So it's really exciting to see in that sense. So I think ultimately here, banned and restricted announcement for August 26, 2024. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you're this far into the video, I think I've been blabbering for like 30 plus minutes here, looking at the OBS recording thing here. But again, thank you everyone for joining me here. More videos to come this week. We're definitely going to be just really just brainstorming what in the world is going on with Modern right now. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world, and I'm so excited to be playing constructed Magic.